Ro, Ro, Rohan? Who is this guy? Ro, Rohan? The one and only Rohan!
That's sweet. Almost as sweet as 2021 was for Transformers collectors in mainline. And let's be honest, there were some great figures there for quite a few different variances of people who collect. Generation 1 fans were happy, Kingdom Line had some G1 figures that they'd been looking for a long time, and the Studio Series 86 line for the fans of the movie and Generation 1 in general was really heating up. At the same time, we had a lot of Beast Wars figures coming out, and a few special selects options for those customers who wanted some Diaclone coloured schemed elements. On top of that, you had Hasbro Pulse launching in the UK. Fantastic, what a time to be a Generations collector. Now, not only do you have all the standard retailers that we've had and loved for many years offering us Transformers, in addition, a lot of these newer, smaller retailers popping up over the last few years, but we've got the official channel of getting figures, ideally very quickly, from the manufacturer themselves. And a lot of people did wonder whether or not they should sign up for Hasbro Pulse last year on the premium account. £20 discounted seemed like reasonable value. You were supposed to get instant access to new exclusives, which didn't really materialize. However, what people did get and do love is the next day shipping, which is pretty cool for figures when they are coming out very, very close to release time, which, let's be honest, didn't happen for the first 9 or 10 months.
Promises!
But more recently, there's been a few figures like Legacy Bulkhead that have started to come out first from Pulse. All of this comes about at a time when we have had a massive amount of change in the way in which we order our Transformers. And I know we've talked about pre-orders before, but 2021 was so different to 2020 and 2019 in terms of pre-orders and in terms of the way in which we got our Transformers that it's worth discussing. Specifically so with regards to those figures that were hard to get in 2019 and 2020, those exclusives, those very, very difficult to find figures, or those ones that were just not released here at all. I'm not going to go through the loads and loads of figures that I'm talking about, but you know what the ones, the Pit of Judgment, the Earthrise Thrust, the Runabouts. But in 2021, if we think about the Kingdom line, the Studio Series 86 line, and the Gen Selects figures, how many were actually really hard to get hold of? Well, there was a bit of an overspill from Earthrise with people struggling to get the Titan class Scorponok figure. And we saw that in Kingdom, the Titan class Arc figure was plentiful. In fact, it still is relatively plentiful. So much so that it's been discounted. We had the Commander class Rodimus figure, which is a bit of love or hate situation. It could have been on my polarizing list for last week. Again, plentiful. And again has been discounted in many, many retailers. Pretty much all of the Kingdom line was relatively well stocked, reasonably easy to get hold of. Maybe a couple of the Beast Wars figures were a bit more scarce, the likes of Waspinator and Rhinox and a few others potentially. I don't know because I don't collect those. But from what I've been told, pretty much everything was relatively easy to come by. And most of them got discounted. Now, what about the Studio Series 86 line? We had difficulty getting Scourge, but realistically, he came back in stock later, so it wasn't that hard to get hold of. I think people were panic buying a little bit. And the other one that was relatively hard to get hold of was Slag, or Slug. And again, once the main retailers had sold out, there were still other retailers who still have him. In fact, actually, he's been discounted now at 1 or 2 retailers down to £40. My question to all of you is, what are you pre-ordering for 2022? My last pre-order was Kingdom Blaster. Still hasn't arrived. It should be arriving next week. However, it turns out that there was more than enough stock of Blaster to go around. The same was true of Slammer and pipes. In previous years, with Hasbro, generally you would struggle to get the death end of the line in stores. We arc back to Titan's Return when it was impossible to find Blitzwing and Octane, or some of the actual deluxe line as well, with the likes of Misfire and Aimless. And then the same is true for further lines, with people struggling to get hold of the figures that came out towards the end of the line due to less production. Hasbro just didn't give a monkeys by that stage. However, now we find ourselves in a different scenario. With Legacy, it seems like Wave 1 and 2 are being announced or being available for pre-order. I haven't ordered a single one of them because, if I'm honest with you, I think they're going to be plentiful. What do you think? Do you think you should be pre-ordering them now, miss out the opportunity, FOMO? Or are they going to get discounted like a lot of the previous two lines, Earthrise and Kingdom, ended up being? Are they going to warm the shelves? And especially now that we've got this mixed line of Generation 1 and Prime and other characters that are going to be coming out in Legacy, it makes me wonder, do I click? Do I hover? I do this every week. I go onto a store, retailer where I buy things from, and say, do I need this? Do I add it to my basket? No, yes, no, yes, no. And then what about the Studio Series 86 line? Do we pre-order Sludge? Do we pre-order Junk Heap? And I think looking back at Redgar has become in abundance and become discounted, it's a really difficult question to answer. In previous years, you would have said, pre-order it now, because if you miss out, it's going to be 3 or 4 times the price on the secondary market. However, now it's quite easy to get hold of some of these bits and pieces. We haven't got the Earthrise, Alliance Brothers, Prowl and Ironhide only available through Amazon exclusive. We haven't got the Earthrise villains only available through whatever means that they were. We haven't got these Target exclusives from Kingdom where people have struggled to pick them up. So, are Legacy going to have any of these exclusives? Have Hasbro learned their lesson and they stopped doing the exclusives altogether? Is 2022 going to be the year when we're all able to get all the bots we want? Here's hoping. For another week, I've been Rohan on Rohan's Corner. Thank you for joining me. Catch you again next week. Back to the studio.